Today is the last Sunday of November 2005 in Springwater. Whenever people come together for a question period, or dialogue as we call it these days, the question does come up, how can I be more attentive? I would like to be here, if possible all the time, but at least more than I'm now. Here meaning what? What does it mean to be here? To be present, to be attentive. These are all synonymous words for this amazing state of being in which there is no choice. I want to be aware of this but not that. I want to think this but not that. That isn't present in the state of presence. There's just what is here, without preference. And is there a way of strengthening this presence for us? You could ask yourself, well, why do I want to be more present? Because it seems to be the flavor of the week, or this is what people here do and I'm here so I should conform. Or has one noticed from experience that there is quite a different way of living if we're present-minded rather than absent-minded? And absent-minded means what? To be thinking of something else but what is here right now. Which does not mean don't think anymore or learn not to think. You may have to think about what your schedule is tomorrow if you have a plane to catch or you have to be someplace, doctor's appointment at a certain time. You have to think what time will I have to get up? Will I have a ride? Or if I drive myself, is the car ready? Does it have gas in it? And this kind of thinking is very necessary. The clearer it is, the better we don't make confused appearances that we go someplace else where we are supposed to be, or connected with our job. That thinking does not mean to so enclose the mind that it is not responsive to what is happening right now in the environment around one. Can you discern, can you be pretty sure what it means to be present and what it means and what it means to be lost in thought? Taking the latter first, to be lost in thought means so much occupied with the scenario of what one is going to do, where one is going to be tomorrow, or what one is going to say to this person who has hurt my feelings, or person has flattered my feelings, so I think of how can I meet that person again, it felt so good. Can one tell the difference between this kind of thinking, which is enclosing, and necessary thinking, which is necessary for one's job, for one's household, for whatever life brings from moment to moment? There's very often thought required. And what is the difference between that thought and being lost in thinking? If you get a little bit more observant or sensitive with regard to yourself and other people. It always goes hand in hand. When there's more sensitivity for the processes that go on in oneself, then one becomes more sensitive to processes happening in other people. One learns to discern. We all can tell when somebody is lost in thought. We may say something to him or her, and there's just a blank stare. Person that hasn't even heard me. Or this story, I've mentioned it many times, is told of Newton. He was fixing himself an egg for breakfast, and he was cooking the egg timer and held the egg in his hand, looking at the egg, and I can sympathize with that. I sometimes find myself being lost like this, but particularly with the result of some of the medication that I'm taking, which is very conducive to dreaming, to being lost someplace in reverie. So can you tell, and you can probe this for yourself, can you tell the difference between needing to think, you may wonder, well, what do they do here when the bell rings? Do I know that? There may be a thought going through the mind. Or the thinking which is protesting something. Why do they have a bell here? I wish they didn't have bells. It would be so much more peaceful or democratic if nobody rang the bell. This type of thinking which has maybe a protest in it, or a wishful thinking. Can you tell the difference? And the difference between that and being here. Even though a thought may crop up, be thought, and does not really lead to this total absorption or lostness. The being present. Can you tell the difference between being here and lost in thought? Ask yourself that if that question crops up during the day, and then wonder, well, where am I right now? Not how was it yesterday, all day sitting or so, but right now, am I here? And then, having asked this question, to sort of silently stop and listen. Am I here? Are you asking yourself? I'm asking myself, am I here? And here are the touch of the fingers are very hard, the feet are hard, the air is quite pleasantly cool, there's a very, very fine hum, some motor running, maybe, who knows what, refrigerator, an oven, and a heater, fan, and the speaking voice is palpably felt. For you, it is the hearing mechanism, listening, hearing sounds, speech, Toni's voice, maybe a thought going through the mind, what did you mean by that? I got to ask about this. And then, am I here nonetheless in spite of this question? Or am I now caught in, what am I going to ask her later? How am I going to phrase it so I'll sound minimally intelligent, not stupid? These thoughts may go through the mind. So again, am I here? Are we here? And there's a slight sound of a posture change, or maybe somebody just moving a little bit. And is your heart beating? Can you hear it? You may not. A lot of people don't hear the heart beating, but it's beating nonetheless. So you can maybe put your thumb on your pulse, or if you don't want to go through those motions, just listen to the breathing. Can there be listening to the breathing? That is hearing the breathing, or sensing it, the inhalation, and with that, the expansion of this whole diaphragm area. If that's where your breathing takes place, you may have breathing take place farther up in the throat or lungs. I mean palpable breathing. The lungs, of course, are involved for all of us. Can that be felt here, now? Or does the thought take over? Oh, I can't feel my breathing, she can. How come I don't? How can I practice it? I'll ask that later. And with these thoughts cropping up and giving birth to more thoughts, again, there's no awareness of the breathing. There's involvement and thinking about the breathing. Are we together on this? Right now. Is there breathing, whichever way it is taking place for each one of us, a little bit different? Is there awareness of breathing right now? And some sense of vibrations or something in the fingers, the body, the blood is circulating. Is there some awareness of it? Some sensation? Not it ought to be there. This is not what we're talking about. That is unnecessary thought, which distracts from being here. Just whatever is here. And maybe the thought comes in, I feel nothing. There's nothing palpable. Is that just a clean, clear thought? Or there are also emotions with it? Emotions meaning I ought to feel something. Other people are feeling something. Why don't I? Which immediately shatters whatever brief presence there was. And now there is involvement and judgment about my practice, my way of listening to breathing. But it's not to be condemned or judged. It's just to be felt, sensed, acknowledged as something that's taking place right now, here. Are we here? The feeling of the bottom touching the chair or wherever you sit on maybe on your heels or cushions, knees, feeling of knees, hands are folded, the sensation of fingers touching each other in that posture of folding. Whichever way the body is folded up right now, can that be simply felt without judgment? Contributing to this sensation of here-ness, now-ness, presence, attention. And are there thoughts winding through this of how I ought to feel? To acknowledge that. Are there judgments about it? I should not be judgment. Just to let it all reveal itself freely, uncriticized. There's no one here to critique what is happening. Just acknowledging it, awareing it, without comment. And can one sense the difference between the pure sensing of posture, bent knees, folded hands, and the comments about it, the judgments, this is good, this is bad. And there's a difference. Unless the comments themselves become pure sensation and input. Yeah, there's commenting going on, but it doesn't need to affect the person with praise or blame. It's not necessary. Praise and blame are not called for in this simple awareness of being here. Again, are we here? And if the answer is, I don't know, then stop for a moment. Whatever is going on, not the heartbeat, it cannot be stopped. The breathing can be stopped for a brief while. But stopping with the judgmental comments, because they impede the purity of listening. Here, quietly. Maybe the thought had gone through some of the people's minds here. Well, as long as Toni is talking, I cannot really be attentive to myself. I have to listen to the words. So let's stop talking for a moment so there can be no impediment to awareness. Open the window for a moment. I hope this is all right. Are you all right? Is it okay? Thank you. So now, footsteps, Stu's footsteps, the wood vibrating a little bit, sitting down sounds, maybe sensation of some cool air probably is not penetrating till way back there. Not yet. Here it's wonderful. And here the metal frame of the chair is cool. That is pleasant to the hot hands. They enjoy that pleasant coolness. Enjoyment of coolness for hot hands does not need to be a thought. I'm not expressing it now in words, but it is an instantaneous sensation. Also that after a while the spot gets warm, so the hands seek for a new cool spot. And the noise, again some fan roaring, it's not roaring. I don't know the right word, slight sound. Hear it. And the breathing, sensation in the knees, the buttocks. Pure sensing, or is there also judging? Let it come into awareness. I like this. I don't like it. I like it if there's you could call this a guided meditation or guided awareness. You may think, oh, I like this. Why doesn't she do this all the time? It's easier to be attentive when somebody leads it. Is it? We can talk about it afterwards in the question period. Now, no words, a moment of no words. Just listening. Are we here? Present? Now? Without impediment? Or if there is impediment, what is it? What's in the way? Is there something in the way? If you feel there isn't this real being here or presence, then wonder, what is it that's in the way of complete here-ness, now-ness? Because if there's a gurgling stomach or aching need. This is not in the way. This is something that's here. It enters awareness when it's here. Sound. Different sounds, different sensations. Are they here? Simple? Without any complaint? If a complaint is here, can it just be simple? Complaining about something? And then again, simple listening. Not to what should be here, but to what is here. Right now, tightness here. Shoe, so bending and dropping the shoe. Feeling of some release of tension down there. Now you don't feel that, you just hear me say that, but it's felt here. But there may be a tension in your feet too. Can you feel it if it's there? It's okay. Let it be there. Without any need to do anything about it. Or take the shoe off, change the posture. Right now you wouldn't be disturbing anybody because we're having sort of experiment. So, the question of how can I be more aware, I wish I was more present, could lead to doing some things like this during the day when you have a moment, or you're sitting someplace waiting for somebody, waiting to see somebody in the office, or waiting to see a doctor. While you're waiting, you may be with a friend and talking, or you may just be sitting quietly and wondering, am I here right now? When that question pops up, whatever has been going on in the mind, fantasizing or dreaming, is interrupted. Something opened up to this question, am I here? And then listening to the sounds and feeling the sensations. Does this help in general to be more present for us, if we so desire? And there is apparently, at least for people who come here, there's a real genuine desire to be more present. It's always asked, how can I be more attentive, more aware? You wouldn't ask this if there wasn't some desire for that. So if that desire is there, then listen more often by asking these questions. Am I here? What's going on right now in the mind? And when that question crops up in the mind, there has already been a stopping of just dreaming or fantasizing. There was a stopping and wondering, well, where am I? What is going on? And with that question, what is going on, there is a gathering of energy in listening, isn't there? Am I here? And energy gathers in listening here to find out. Sometimes we're so ambitious to always be good and right. Somebody may immediately say, yes, of course I'm here. I mean, where else am I? But we mean something very special with this being here, not just the idea of being here, but the actual fact of being here. Now, do you see the difference between the idea of being here and the actual fact of being here? What is the difference? You can sometimes tell when you work with people. If you ask a question like, are you here? And the person immediately shoots out the answer, then it usually comes from the top of the head. We say that when we mean it is not, doesn't come out of listening and looking inwardly, but out of knowing that I ought to be here. Of course I'm here. Somebody who doesn't shoot out an answer immediately would take a moment and listen and ask, are you here? Sort of taking a moment of listening and then noticing what all goes on in the mind that is not conducive to here-ness and now-ness. Conducive to dreaming dreams, completing fantasies. So is this mind getting more used to being here rather than lost in dreams? It makes a big difference in our life whether the mind is getting more proficient in being here, in stopping fantasies and listening now. It's a different energy of living. This energy of nowness, presence, which means the last moment, the past moment is dropped. It is not mulled over, worried about, endlessly thought about, but the energies are here to listen to the freshness of this moment. Do you see the difference? We'll talk about this in the question period later. When the mind is done from moment to moment with what happened, sometimes it's not possible. You have to remain with what has been said and think it over and so forth. But normally, to be finished with what happened and not mull it over, think it over, argue about it, this mental arguing about what somebody said, and he was wrong, why didn't he see it, I'm going to teach him or tell him. These processes of self-justification or accusing others of this or that go on in human beings' minds, taking away from this freshness of presence now. And the more presence there is in the mind, meaning not hanging on to what was, but listening to what is, the more that the mind learns the dispatching or dismissing of what was and opening up to what is, which one will find is a wonderful state of being. It is full of fresh energy to respond out of the moment, the situation of the moment. can start a dialogue going.